Welcome to the special meeting called by the mayor Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. The agenda is a public hearing regarding the budget. Do I have a motion?
I do.
Got a motion by George Lawrence, a second by Paul Tisdale. Call for the question. All in favor? Motion carries. We'll begin with the mayor's report.
We have no report. We're ready to get to the business of the budget summary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council report. Councilman Tisdale. Councilman Lawrence.
No report.
Councilman Barrett. Councilman Gines. Councilman Glavin. Thank you. And I have no report. This will bring us to the public agenda. Lucy.
Public hearing to provide the general public with an opportunity to comment on the taxing and spending plan incorporated in the proposed budget of Biloxi, Mississippi.
Thank you, Lucy. Mr. Mayor, and I want to remind anybody in the audience that wants to speak regarding the public hearing and the budget, our citizens' comments have been moved to after the public agenda portion. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. President. I think you have a single sheet. It's my talking paper to talk about the preparation and the point that we come to today. And it's kind of three sections. Actually, the top would be where we were in 20, and when COVID came along, we put the brakes on. And if you can look at over to the left part, the general. This is just general fund expenses and revenues and summaries. But from the left to right, we got the number of employees, their actual employees plus budgeted vacancies. And as you know, jumping forward a little bit, March came along, and April and May, we took a significant hit to a lot of things for about $5 million or so. We hope that'll wind up being about $5 million to gaming revenue and sales tax. So looking at where we were, and again, you see the little note on about 720, as I said, we did take the opportunity to examine where we were with vacancies, and saw about 100 vacancies there, not 96 vacancies. So our accounting group and Mike, we said, where are we now with personal services, which is about 70% of the ball game, as well as what's remaining for FY20. So therefore, we actually developed a schedule to reserve about $2.7 million. That's right in the center of the page. So we reduced the basis for the 21, but was the adjusted basis for 20 or from 2020 to 21. So we went from about 65 million down to 63 million in expenses for this year, and we're still trying to play to that number. As far as now really, what we did was eliminate. Mike, jump in anytime. Or Diana or Jody, we eliminated about 90 vacancies that was part of the budget, and we examined where we'll need to be as far as 21. And that figure right there with actual employees and vacant employees, that's what we have. This is about the fourth set of numbers where it's pushing towards the 2021 budget.
One of the things, if you asked me if you said I could jump in, so I will.
Yeah.
As this was unfolding, we saw one of the options we had would be to furlough or lay off employees, and the mayor wanted to do everything that he could do to avoid that. So we started looking at options. You're aware that we refinanced the bonds, which was a over $300,000 savings on the year. We moved the delivery of the 2 fire trucks into the next year. We moved the delivery of the bucket truck that had been ordered into the next year, all these payments then got pushed into 2021 and out of 2020. We left all these positions vacant. Police and fire have been struggling mightily because as people left, we didn't replace them. So we end up with over 100 vacant positions. Now 50 of those really was, 50 plus of those were the summer. We canceled summer camp for all the kids, and it's actually not in the budget this year either. So I mean, we were getting a report. My IT savvy mayor gave us a spreadsheet every week to show us where we were. against the ending point. And this was all really being driven by the fact that we knew there were some options that we had that he didn't want to take.
Right.
So we still got a month to go, and you know,
And we're
stuff
hopeful,
happens.
again, this budget reflects, we're hopeful of a $5 million loss in revenue. So if you took, if you look at the beginning stuff and somebody grabbed $5 million, that would be a big hit. And that takes us down to the very bottom part of the thing. But let me continue what Mike was talking about. So we looked at next year, the 21 year, and so instead of leaving those vacancies, we actually skinny down what we could actually do. So, basically in this budget, we're reflecting in the general fund 584 actual employees plus 14 vacancies to be budgeted. And that's what that last column, the FY 2021 budget. So
That means there are going to be still firemen that are vacant positions, and when we begin the new year, there'll still be police that'll be vacant positions when we begin the new year, and there'll be public works employees that'll be missing when we begin the new year.
Well, these vacancies are programmed and budgeted. So with that in mind, these numbers that you see, that the bottom line of the general fund would be 58,282,967. In the non-departmental, we made some adjustments through the budget workshops and council workshops. So that other big part of the non-departmental budget is $4.539 million.
And for the record,
Yeah.
the council added $90,000 to the non-department budget during the workshops, and that money's still in there.
Yeah.
Everything you've asked for, all the plus-ups that you asked for are still in there. It was 90,000 extra.
So now the revenue, the expense side of the ball game is programmed there, and it's 62,822. Any questions so far? So that's a big part. The biggest part of the budget is, the general fund, and I think you've got the breakdown on the port and water and sewer fund. So again, in the middle of the year, we put the brakes on. We reserved about $2.7 million through council workshops. And with our directors to figure out what we need to do in 2021. So that $62 million is the expense side of the 2021 budget. Okay. If you go back to the left at this point, the revenues back in 2020. This is again, this was also considered. We're doing what we're doing. We did that at 9/10, I think, in September 10th. So what we had forecast, the original budgeted figures for expenses was $65,177,000, as opposed to what we're doing this year, $62,822. So we actually reduced the expenses by that amount from this time last year, looking at this time next year. Okay? Any questions? So we actually programmed about $3 million less in expenses for the general fund.
I just want to make one comment, and I made this comment in our workshops. These quarterly payments that we make, whether it's CTA, whether it's the library system or others, they have to know that this is a budgeted number, and if our revenues don't match up with our budgeted expenses, those numbers could be cut as well. They cannot depend on that budgeted amount solely if that is declining, or conversely, if CTA's expenses are declining and not as high, they should talk to us and we should make adjustments there as well.
CTA in the library and the taxi cab checkers, those are groups that bill us as we go through the year. They don't bill us all at one time. Now, when it comes to paying for the golden fishermen, I don't think we've been asked to make donations over the month.
The 35,000 is
by
included in that
month.
45 as well as the 25. I think, Paul, we did something. We included the 25 additional from that workshop we had. So that's buried in, that's actually in this $4.539 million budget.
But each one of those non-department giveaways or payments will come back to you, each one to approve as they go out. And if the budget doesn't support them, we won't support them, and you will get a chance to vote it down.
Right.
Also, part of that 4.5 is 2.9, almost $3 million in insurance. So that's a big chunk of the ball game there. All right.
Okay, I had a question. Did I understand correctly? At this point, when we anticipate approving the budget 2 weeks from now, September 15th, correct?
Right.
Correct, sir.
All right, and once we approve that budget, our contributions to non-departmentals are approved at that point, such as the contribution to the Seafood Museum, right?
Right.
But did I understand?
All of those, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, but I understood you to say, Mr. Leonard, that those quarterly payments will come before the council to be approved. Well, if they're already approved in the budget, there's no need to do that, is there? I mean,
No.
that's,
It's on the docket, I guess is
No,
what you meant.
it's on the docket.
right, it's on the
Shows
docket.
that-
I
No requiring an
I just
amendment.
wanted to be clear about that. I mean,
Quarter, yeah.
Mr. Glavin's point is well taken, and that is, we don't know what we
Right.
are always guessing at our revenue.
Right.
But once we approve the budget, then these appropriations are good to go. But as Mr. Glavin mentioned, if our revenues are lagging that far behind, we have to reconsider some of these
Yeah.
things. Then I'm assuming at that point,
Budget amendment.
these would be, right.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Right, which
Well-
is what we typically do. I just
I
wanted
would
to
just make
clarify that
just one
point.
comment, Councilman, and that is, that's true of the CTA and the Taxi Club Association and so forth. And it's true of the agreements. What's not true is that if it's Cruising the Coast, for example, they then send us an invoice.
Right,
If it's the council of, or the CASA group, they send us an invoice, and those invoices
Right.
make our way back to the council. I don't know why that is, but that's what we've done in the past on the donations, shall we say, the donation side of the budget.
all right, so to be sure.
So they didn't give us a budget that we had to approve, they just
Okay,
asked for so much money.
but entities like the library have, from what I just heard, those numbers are baked in this budget.
Yep.
We're going to approve this budget, they're ready to go.
That's,
You mentioned invoices. Are they expected to invoice the city quarterly?
they are and they do,
Okay, all right. As long as I
yeah.
better understand that now, I just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Thanks for making that
okay.
point.
So everybody's comfortable with, from the expense side, what we did last year versus where we are right now. Okay? And that bottom line total expense is 62,822, 7 something, whatever, 768. All right. From the revenue standpoint, again, the big hitters, the numbers with 6 zeros behind it is coming from gaming and also sales tax. So I think these figures at about the 10th of September, we had kind of scheduled some revenues and other financing sources, and against, this is on the left-hand side down. So at 2020 year, we started estimating 59.558, or 50, yeah, 826 in revenues from the various categories. Again, what has happened is that, there's about $5 million less in it. And given where we are with this last month, we're hopeful that it could be a little bit better situation, but we programmed, I think, the most conservative situation where we're going to absorb a $5 million hit. Now, again, $1.3 million is those extraordinary expenses that we took by the 3 weeks during emergency time. That total to be about 1.3, 1.4, I think, wasn't it? Total. This is for COVID. So we absorbed that hit in the salary. We're hopeful in this budget year that we'll get reimbursed for that lost or extraordinary expenses. And again, it's not booked. The lost revenue opportunity may come along too. But as Mike's mentioned, we took every opportunity to refinance, which actually saved us $377,000 this year, filled that part of that $5 million hole. And so that, that brings us to, the things we can do now in programming what we need to do next year. But the combined fund statement last year for fiscal 2020 showed an estimated beginning balance of $8 million. This is the lower left-hand part of the screen of the spreadsheet, with that $59 million in revenues and almost $2 million in other financing sources, and with the $65 million in expense. we were going to end with 4,104,119 in cash. So that was a decrease in cash balance of about 3 million,
You can ask, you can ask.
almost 3.9 million, okay? Now, keep that in mind, and again, if you look right over to the right-hand side, well, we're estimating not where we are right now, because we were on a pretty good tear with regard to gaming and some of these other things. So that 5 million, if we'd have taken 5 more million, that would have been 8 million down, okay? Yet we were, doing what we did. We're estimating to start 10-1 with 3.372 million in cash, okay? So in looking at the expenses for 2021 and the revenues we estimated of 59,595,000 plus some other financing sources, I think 1.3, Diana, is that the reimbursement from, okay, for fire trucks, okay, that's most of the capitalization. But anyway, bottom line is, the revenue component would be added those two numbers together. So if we start with 3.372 in cash, 10-1, we add the revenues of 59 and other financing sources of 122. That brings us minus the 62,822,000. It brings us to a $1.4 million balance, but that difference is just 1.944 million. So, the jump from ending cash of 4.1, take $5 more million away from the revenues we did not receive through COVID, and put that, I think it's we're in an extraordinary position to be only $700,000-800,000 off of what we actually scheduled back in September of 2019. Okay? We did reduce our expected gaming revenue by about $1.3 million, $1.4 million for next year. Is that right? By $1.5 million, and about the same for sales tax. But we did increase the budget for ad valorem. There was a number of properties that rolled off into the abatements have been rolled off, and so that accounted for the increase in ad valorem general property tax. So we increased it from almost 10.8 million to 11.293. That was the good side of where we are right now. So, if everything goes according to plan, and this is a very conservative number, if you look at the expenses and the revenues, we're going to start off with $3.3 million in cash, pay some expenses, and wind up with about 1.4 million at the end of the year. Now, again, we're trying to guess where we're going to be at this time next year.
Actually, we're even guessing where we're going to be this time next month.
But we got a little bit more educated guess on
Councilman
it.
Lawrence?
The question that I didn't see the enterprise funds on here.
Yeah,
The
it's
Port
part of your
Commission
package.
and water and sewer.
That's in your package. What pages was that? You got two schedules there. This was the biggest.
I'm showing that the water sewer fund will end the year, end 2021 with a balance of 3.9 million.
You don't have it on this sheet though, right?
Not on that sheet. This is just general fund.
Because I didn't
But
notice.
it is on the package that I handed out, that I emailed to you. Right, it's in there. I know they're tiny numbers, and I can make you a bigger one, but
Yeah, I can see it.
water sewer fund will end with a 3.9 million balance, and port will end with a 2.3 million dollar balance. So both funds will be solid in this budget. Both of the enterprise funds will.
That's gained cash balance.
And that's thanks to the council allowing us to raise the water rates just 2%. Every little bit helps.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready to take questions?
Now, I'm ready to take questions.
Councilman Tisdale?
Yes, thank you. Really, just some observations. I want to be sure that I'm correct. When we talked about the number of employees, these we show the actual employees and the positions vacant. You noted that we're going to start with a few empty positions
Right.
at the beginning of this fiscal year. It did not include any of the, I guess, what we'd call seasonal employees, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's Parks and Recreation.
Right, well,
More than 50.
that's correct. For example, we have part-time lifeguards,
Right.
some of those positions. won't be or may not be filled, but likely, they're not indicated here as being filled, and that's going to crimp folks swimming in the natatorium, or particularly at the Snyder Center and the pool. Yes?
The part-time employees that we have for the lifeguards are the only ones we're not doing are the extra seasonal that we would have had for the.
Okay.
And that was about 50, about 50? About 50?
Okay, so the typical part-timers that are lifeguards at Snyder or the natatorium are still there. It's just the folks that are hired for summer programs or when the demand goes up.
Right.
All right.
About 50 total, I think that's what we're talking.
Oh. Right. Okay, great. That's good news then. Okay, but that does include those summer employees that are hired, for example, like the city summer camp, which we did not have this year.
And is not budgeted this
And
next
it's
year.
not budgeted for this next year. Now, at some point, we may be able to, but right now, folks need to understand that that's not in the budget for next year. The other observation on the projected revenue, Mayor, looking at your big spreadsheet, we talked about revenues of projected to be 59,
595?
59.6, yeah, 595,916.
Yep.
And I just note that this is typically, and George, you can probably back me up on this over the years, because you've been here a few more years than most of us. Well, actually, everybody in the room, I think. And typically our revenue runs 58 or 59 million, I think, unless we get some sort of federal funding for something, grants or something. But typically, so our revenue, if we had not been knocked for a loop this year, we would have had a pretty good year.
Right.
But that's not the case, and we're hoping things are a little better than what's indicated here. But it seems to be a reasonable projection. Our expenses right now are projected to exceed our revenue, but we do have some cash that we're bringing forward, which will help us, among other things. All that to say that this budget, for the most part, looks typically like most of our past budgets. It's just that I think, under the circumstances, I think the administration, again, has done a very good job managing the money. If we had more money, we could make more people happy. We could offer more services in a timely fashion. But it's tough to recover from $4.5 or $5 million that you counted on but didn't have with only 4 or 5 months left in the year. So that really concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tisdale. Councilwoman Newman? Councilman Lawrence?
On this, on the sheet, Mike, on a non-department, is that the 200,000 that you added back, is that insurance? On the 2.8, you went to 3 million?
The major change in the non-department budget is the increase from 2.7 to 2.9 million for insurance.
So the insurance, you added a 200,000 to the insurance, to the property insurance.
And at your meeting on the 15th, we have Frank Bordeaux scheduled to come in and talk you through where we are on the, as you know, not all of our policies start in 1st of September. Some start in March, some start in October. He's scheduled to be at the next meeting to talk you through, is the 2.9 going to work for us? I mean, we had 2.9 in the budget originally last year, and we took it back to 2.7, and it ended up being 2.9. So
So it needs to be at least 2.9 and 3, just to cover the property insurance.
yeah, we don't know. I've said this before. Everything in insurance is usually about the absence of badness, meaning you're not making mistakes, you're not hurting yourself, you're not having injuries, you're not having car wrecks. None of that's happening. The city's doing very well in terms of its performance that should drive the rates down, but the rates aren't going down. And you probably see that in your own pocketbook.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday with the health insurance, the same thing there, you're saving money, but everything's constantly going up. So the price is going up. We're still sitting at, we're gonna do the same budget, pretty much 7.5 million for the health insurance.
I appreciate the fact that you guys, you gave me a heads up. I got a report from your meeting yesterday ahead of time, and then the actuals came through a little bit later. Essentially, where we are on the health insurance part of the insurance picture is it's a $23,000 increase out of $8 million. So it's just a tiny increase in total claims and costs for medical insurance. So it's essentially flat.
Very much. That was a good thing. That's it for me.
That's all?
That's it.
Councilman Barrett? Councilman Guines? Councilman Glavin? All right, at this time, I'm going to ask if any citizens would like to speak regarding the budget, please come to the table where Mike Leonard is sitting, state your name and your address, and please sign in for me. We're running short on time, so we have 15 minutes left. I'll provide 3 minutes per person. And remember, we do have a council meeting scheduled after this, so if these remarks pertain to the council in general or to the agenda for the upcoming meeting, I would request that you reserve those comments until that meeting. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of the budget? Anyone on the left-hand side of the room or the right-hand side of the room or the back? There being none, I will ask for a recess by one of the council members.
So moved.
A motion by George Lawrence to recess. Do I have a second? Second by Felix Guines. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We are in recess and we'll be back at 6 o'clock for the regularly scheduled meeting. Councilman Lawrence moved it. Councilman Guines seconded. Is it to adjourn? May I ask you to amend your motion to adjourn?
I will.
Mr. Lawrence amends his motion to recess to adjourn, and Councilman Guines amends his second to adjournment. And we are adjourned. See you at 6.